Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mortgage Coach Tuesday call. We're coming to you with a video today. So I've got an exciting call. As you guys know, every Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock Pacific, we're here to connect to help you personally and professionally be more successful. I want to kick off today's call rather than talking about the Mortgage Coach values, which I typically do, and just do a bit of a rant around an article that I just read yesterday. It says, marketing is dead and loyalty killed it. And when I first saw it, I was naturally attracted to it because I am so much more committed to delivering service to your customer than marketing. I'll get to Glenn Bill's quote in a minute, but I just think what customers want is they want unique service that delivers obvious value, more than they want what you want to tell them. So I posted this in the chat. I also put this in the comments of our Facebook page. A couple things that I wanted to pull out of it is that they talk about how customers have so many options. And by the way, wherever I put brand, think loan officer. You're a loan officer. You're a brand. You're a brand in your local market. And they talked about communicating something personal about their own beliefs and priorities. And the best way to establish and reinforce value is to create content that is so highly specific it defines not only you, but the customer. And again, I know I bleed Mortgage Coach, but when I read that, I think delivering a total cost analysis because it is your personal brand, it's your lender's brand, and it is customer-centric. I mean, every customer, when they look at a GFE and the way that they make mortgage decisions without Mortgage Coach, and they see a Mortgage Coach report, what does the customer want? What does the borrower want? What does the realtor want? So read this article. It was in Harvard Business Review. I think they nailed it. Kristen and Dan, I'm going to ask you to provide some thoughts in just a second here. I think they crushed it. And so as we go in today's call, we're going to talk about millennials. We're going to talk about folks, from other countries that speak different languages that we need to serve. And I just want everybody to think about it's not what should I say, because I know we're going to go through some stuff and we're going to give you some scripts. So we're going to tell you what to say. We're going to share what's working. But I want everybody to talk about it's what really, in order to have loyalty, in order to deliver on this article, think about what should I be more than what should I say, and really be a value creator. So, Kristen, I know you had a chance to read it. Any quick comments before we kick off the call and bring you in?
Yeah, definitely. I thought this was right on. People hire me a lot of times to do marketing strategy with their LOs, and 90% of the stuff that I teach is all on loyalty, relationship building. That is the new marketing. It's all about how to build relationships effectively, communicate your message effectively through those relationships, and really build your personal brand. So I definitely agree with that. I love the quote by Simon Sinek who says, people buy they don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think this really is reflected well in that article.
No doubt. And another great quote from someone I interviewed a few weeks ago, Realtor Glenn Bill, where he said, give me what I want to receive, not what you want to give me. And again, I just see too many loan officers, when you look at the time they spend messaging, marketing, trying to stay top of mind, more focused on what they want to give than what the borrower and the realtor really want to receive. Hey, Dan Keller, any quick thoughts from you before we get into the meat of today's call?
Yeah, I mean, the article just confirmed, and Kristen just said the same thing, just confirmed, what, one of the guys that I've been following for years, Gary Vaynerchuk, who's doing a brilliant job selling in a new market, and he's been talking about this for the past few years. It's how much value can you bring during the sales and closing process, and the article hit it right on the head. It's about who you are, and it's about bringing value and standing out in a new era of selling.
Right on. So one last thought before I bring Kristen in. I want to do just a quick debrief on the call with Scott Cummings last week. I think Scott epitomizes this. When you really, if you didn't listen to that call, I urge you to listen to it. He really broke down his realtor sales process. So he's a loan officer that's a mortgage coach that believes in going from price to advice, and he talked about how he integrates that with realtors and how he presents at the point of sale, whether this is a picture from a coffee shop, whether it's him looping in the realtor, He's constantly putting a video. So it's not about what he says. It's about how he's delivering value. This is a picture of his in-office experience. So if he's working with a new realtor, not only is he typically meeting with them at a Starbucks, coffee shop, or their office, but he's always driving them into his office. He's creating an experience so they really understand how he's unique, how he's valuable. And again, notice the fact that it's got his company's brand. It's got his personal brand. So he's taking that core service that he's delivering, at least the part of the sales experience we represent, which is options. What are your options? Helping the borrower make an informed, confident decision, and he's doing that in a branded way, and he's doing that in a unique way. So with that said, if you didn't listen to that call, I urge you to do that if you're trying to improve your realtor conversation. So how are you as a mortgage coach meeting with realtors and building trust and credibility so they'll refer you business? Listen to that call. So today's call is really a two-part call. First, we're going to kick it off with Kristen. We're going to talk about selling to millennials, although the way Kristen talks to millennials, she didn't just say, oh, I'm a consultant and I'm going to help people sell and market to millennials. She came at it, she's got an interesting backstory, which I hope she shares a little bit of, and she really came at it from a multicultural standpoint. How can we serve people here in the United States from different cultures in the lending experience? How can we serve them better? First of all, lots of lenders aren't even serving the local community. When you look at the demographics and you look at the folks in the markets that they serve, they're not serving the markets that they serve in a way that best serves that market and in a way that best serves that organization. So while we're going to net it out around millennials, she's really got a broader perspective. So Kristen, I'm going to pass you the baton. I'm going to let you share your desktop, and if you can give everybody a little bit on your backstory, and then also drive us through your presentations.
Sure, sounds good. Okay.
And we see your screen.
Okay, great. Cool. So to give you a little bit of information about my backstory, I grew up basically in the mortgage industry. It was my first job, and my dad had started a mortgage company when I was 7, so I planned to take over the company someday and was just always very interested and passionate about the industry. But I also grew up with a madrina in my life, or a godmother. She was from Mexico, and I lived close to the border, so I would travel with her frequently over there, and it became a big part of my identity. And so I became fascinated by understanding how to communicate that culture into my traditional upbringing, into my family's culture, and kind of combining those cultures and understanding how to communicate. I found that there were a lot of barriers, and so I eventually merged those interests into what I do now, helping the mortgage industry LOs communicate their message across cultural boundaries. And I believe that it's the best way to do business now is to properly communicate, and that's what marketing is all about. So I'm going to go through providing you with some of the best practices I found in providing customer service and marketing across cultural segments, and with a specific focus on the millennial population. And I am also a millennial homeowner. So to start out, we know the industry is changing, and with the change in demographics, there's also a change in buying preferences and the way that our message is communicated across different cultures. So there's a demographic shift among the Hispanic population. If we are talking about a new majority in first-time home buyers, it is going to be the Hispanic population. They comprise 56% of the new home purchases in the last few years, and so they are really making up a huge population as we look at the first-time home buyer market. Asians are the fastest-growing ethnic segment. They have higher than average incomes, and even in areas across the United States, but especially in areas like California and Texas, California, they made up 26% of first-time home buyers. And then a lot of people don't think about this, but the immigrant population is making up a huge portion of growth in home ownership. Nearly 40% of growth in home ownership came from immigrants over the last decade. And that's expected to increase with the deferred action and some of the immigration reform stuff coming up. And then, of course, millennials. And a lot of people don't think about it, but millennials are actually a unique culture in and of themselves. They receive messages differently, they buy differently, and they're also extremely diverse in and of themselves. So it's very difficult to actually generalize millennial market segments, but I'm going to provide you with some of the general characteristics of the population. And they are the largest generation in U.S. history, even larger than the baby boomers. So our cultural influences obviously impact our buying decisions. A lot of people get very frustrated talking about how to communicate to millennials or how to communicate with Hispanics or understanding, the different language difficulties. And with millennials, it's kind of a digital language. And but I think it's really exciting, and it is a change in the industry. We've experienced tons of areas we've had to adapt to, but understanding a new culture and how to communicate your message is really exciting. It helps develop ourselves and connect each other with the rest of the world, basically. And I think the way that we communicate our message is all about, that's what marketing is, just how to communicate your message properly. So there's a few questions I think are important to ask before ever even considering a marketing strategy with any segment. Just kind of gathering some of that background information, which I'm going to provide to you in a second with the millennial population. But to prepare your strategy, you want to first ask, what does this population actually want? What do they want in a home? What do they want in a buying experience? And just kind of build that information, because it's going to help you develop your strategy to communicate with them properly. So, for example, with the millennial population, they are wanting to have homes close to their jobs, close to city centers, like right in the action, close to different people, because they want to be very connected, and they don't want to waste time driving in from the suburbs to get to their jobs. There's lots of reasons behind that, but that's an example of kind of clarifying a little bit about the culture that you're going into. And then secondly, why do they buy? What motivates them in that purchase? In the past, it had been largely, you could do a total market strategy when you were doing your marketing, and you could say they're buying because they have an emotional connection with the American dream. Buying a home is about building your family with a white picket fence and a big house, and that is so not why millennials are buying homes now. They are buying homes more for the financial investment piece. So you got to tailor your conversation and your marketing strategy all towards helping them understand how they build their assets and how they why this is a good financial investment. And then third, how do they communicate with each other? And this is not just how do they communicate with you. You have got to figure out exactly how they communicate with their best of friends. Is it over text message? Is it for the Hispanic millennial population, they're using a lot of Spanglish. Just knowing this information tells you a lot about who they are and how you can best communicate with them. And then lastly, what barriers exist? What are some of the areas that really prevent them from becoming homeowners? And what are areas that prevent them from doing business with you? So is it convenience? Is it that they found an application online and it was just easier to go that direction? Or is the barrier to homeownership that they have tons of student loan debt? All of this helps you develop a strategy with that population. Because I always teach that you've got to be content-driven in every aspect and relationship-driven. So if you're having a relationship with your customer, you got to send them articles on how to reduce student loan debt. That might be useful to them and build trust with that customer segment. So that's it for just building your strategy. And now I'm going to give you some background information on millennials and best practices in reaching them. So to start, millennials are obviously very connected. We are all about our technology, and we are extremely social with it. And people don't realize a lot of times, they think that technology has disconnected us from the world in a lot of ways. They think we don't want to see people face-to-face anymore. That's completely not true. We're still hanging out with people. We just want to be connected with people at all times. Extremely social. And we're almost digital natives. I mean, it's almost like we have grown up with having technology. I remember when the internet came out. I'm 27 years old. But in all my formative years, I had technology and information at my fingertips at all times. And millennials are actually very entrepreneurial. I heard one time I was sitting on a panel and about talking about how to reach millennials, and the guy that went before me, I thought very well of him, and I was really excited to hear what he had to say. And he starts out the presentation by saying, we all know millennials are lazy and entitled, and blah, blah, blah. And he starts naming off these horrible characteristics of millennials. But it is a distinctly different culture. Everyone has their negatives and their positives, but millennials are not necessarily lazy. They're very entrepreneurial, and they have so many more options than previous generations had. So more than half of millennials say they want to start their own business. That's a statistic I throw at people that say we're all just very lazy. And millennials also utilize non-traditional sources of income. Very resourceful. We can host people at our house with Airbnb. People pay to come stay with us, and we get to meet people and be connected. It really thrives on our culture. And then we might drive for Uber when we are, which is a ride-sharing option, when we're in college, or it helps us have non-traditional hours. We might do web design on the side. I've done all of these things. And it's very easy to just, because we have access to information at all times and resources, we can choose to have non-traditional areas. This prevents us a lot of times from being able to qualify for a loan. So this would fall in line with one of those barriers you want to help strategize with your customers. And then probably one of the most important things, maybe number one, out of all of this, is that millennials value authenticity above anything else. They value the biggest brands out there. Coca-Cola does a fantastic job of reaching millennials because they are extremely authentic in their advertising. They really connect on a social level. And I thought this statistic was just fascinating, that only 19% of millennials said that most people can be trusted, compared with 31% of just the previous generation. That just tells you we have grown up in such an environment where we've learned not to be able to trust people, and not especially mortgage bankers. I mean, that's pretty rough. So you've really got to establish your personal brand, like Dave was talking about earlier. That's huge, and being authentic in your relationship building with this consumer segment. And then millennials have an international outlook. So this is also drastically different from previous generations. Millennials travel abroad like crazy. We have access to be able to travel abroad a lot more frequently and easier than previous generations did, which really impacts the way that we see the world and the way that we see home ownership too. We want to be a lot more mobile, and we just have access to be able to talk to anyone at any time from around the world. I Skype my friends in Spain almost every week, and I can message them at any time. So that kind of accessibility just really changes the way you see the world. It's a lot smaller. Millennials are also delaying marriage. This is something we hear about all the time in the news, especially in the housing industry. But they are much later getting married than previous generations. They also value social justice, meaning they value when brands and people they work with are giving back in the community. They really want to see that you are doing something that is meaningful. I highly, and we'll talk about this later, but highly recommend that everyone is doing something in the community to show that you, this is your mission. And by the way, millennials are very mission-driven in general. That goes back to the Simon Sinek quote, just that people value not what you do, but why you do it. And that is truer than ever with the millennial population. So despite what we hear in the news, I mean, it is so bad in the news sometimes about how much millennials are not buying homes, and what are we going to do? Millennials don't care about home ownership anymore. But we have great reason to hope. First of all, this generation is absolutely huge. Secondly, they still want to buy homes. We still very much value home ownership. It just looks different to us than it did with previous generations. And you got to know how to reach us. 90% of millennial renters reported saying that they still wanted to own a home someday. Some of them might need to know when they should buy the home. They might want to delay buying the home a little bit, but the desire is still absolutely there. And the great news is that millennials still say that home ownership is a good investment. 87% of millennial homeowners said that their home was a good investment, and that was 14% higher than Gen Xers reported. So this is a fantastic statistic. And then millennials also, we hear all the time in the news that millennials can't buy homes because of their student loan debt. While this is true, student loan debt has risen by like 400% over the last 20 years or something ridiculous. It is not as bad as the media makes it out to be, because anything less than $50,000 has limited to no impact on homeownership rate. and 81% of millennials have less than $50,000 in student loan debt. So part of this is an education issue. Millennials don't realize that if they have less than $50,000 in student loan debt, they still can make a plan for buying a home, that they can still buy a home. So a lot of it comes down to education as well as just making progress towards their financial plan. And then despite millennials putting off getting married, they do actually get married eventually, which has a good impact on homeownership rates. But also, there was a recent article that came out on HomeBuyer, I believe, that talked about how millennials are buying homes before they get married. They're putting mortgage before marriage is what they were quoting. And job market growth is positive. Millennials were apparently hit pretty hard by the market crash, and they were entering the time of buying a home and getting steady jobs and all of that right at the time of the crash. So we've seen a lot of growth and positive growth in the right direction. So that's just an overview of some of the background information on millennials. And now I'm going to give you some information about best practices and actually communicating our message and reaching this emerging market segment. And really, it's not emerging anymore. This is a strategic market and should be, and the trends in the millennial segment reach out to the wider market as well. Generally appeals to a lot of people in other segments. So first of all, create personalized messaging. This whole mass marketing thing is it's just not useful anymore. I love that article that was quoted at the beginning of this segment, of this webinar, about marketing is dead, because traditional marketing really is pretty much over. It's just not very effective. So coming up with a personalized messaging, communicating your message in a way that is received as a personal communication is really the best way to go with this market segment and with all emerging markets. Secondly, recruit and retain diverse talent. So you want to recruit for people that will reflect your customer base. I don't recommend that you just hire Hispanic to reach Hispanics. I think you need to have the diversity within your team that allows you, it's not just about reflecting your customers, it's also about having that innovation. Having a diverse team really helps you to think outside the box and reach across different cultural segments. And that's really important as part of you're developing your brand and your messaging system. But also what I mean by recruit diverse talent with the millennial segment anyways, bring people in that you know that are going to help you understand millennials better. Like if you are trying to learn how to use FaceTime or whatever it is, a new app or something, who better to help you than your son who's 22 years old? Bring those people in as part of your team, your just personal branding support team. Okay. And then use technology to build relationships. Now, I wrote something in an article recently that I talked about using technology to build relationships. And I got so many people emailing me saying, I don't understand how technology builds relationships. It decreases relationships. And we have a lot of negative views of technology, I think, in the industry. We're really behind the times in a lot of ways in reaching or just meeting the demand of consumers for technology. But really, what I mean by using it to build relationships is using things like Mortgage Coach that develop an experience, a consumer experience with them that helps them feel like they're more connected with you and that they can understand the process better. So using text messaging and Facebook to build a relationship with your consumer helps them to stay loyal to you. It is all about loyalty building, relationship building. That's the new marketing. And technology can really help you get there. And I'll give you a couple examples here. But you got to engage with your customer. So putting out on social media just a post about, hey, call us today, we have the lowest rates or whatever, that's really not helpful. I mean, people will pay more for a better experience. They'll pay more to have a relationship with their provider. And there's tons of research behind this. But you've got to put out stuff that engages your customer. Give them educational resources. Don't put out posts that are just sales. That turns millennials away for sure. And then be convenient and quick. So I hear all the time of people, they get a text message saying, hey, I want to schedule a meeting or I want to consider, I don't know, they get a lead of some sort, but they wait a few hours and they've already lost it. And especially just even in the whole origination process, if you can provide your customers, especially millennials, with a quick response of some sort, it really helps them feel like they are valued, and it's just the way that we communicate. We do want instant gratification. I'm kind of going to a negative stereotype here, but it's true. We really do want quick responses. And if you can just say, hey, just checking on this, whatever it is, the stage that the loan is in, and you say, hey, Sarah's working on it, I'll get back in touch with you tomorrow, or hey, can I call you in an hour? Something like that. That's just an immediate response. It is so effective. It puts us at ease, and it tells us that you care about us and are on top of it. It's really speaking our language. So going back to Mortgage Coach, I mean, this is a perfect example of an engagement strategy. You're really able to appeal to millennial values of having knowledge about the whole process. They want to understand everything that's going on, but it's obviously a very complicated process. So if you provide them with technology that is engaging and helps them improve their education, you're really going to be communicating in their language. And something that we don't think about a lot, but millennials are very, we have information at our fingertips at all times. So we're usually going into a sales experience knowing much more about it than our sales provider. So if you can set yourself up as a resource, as someone that can provide that information for them, then we're feeling like we don't have to go out to pull all that information all the time. Like I know when I went to buy my car, I knew I was going to know much more about the car I was buying than my salesperson did. And that was true. But in this case, if you provide some kind of value like this, it tells us that you are an expert and that we can rely on you for quality information. And that is just really key. And then I strongly recommend that you seriously text, instant message, FaceTime with your customers. And a lot of people say, well, we can get everything done over email. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And with this population, it's really important to develop a relationship. And I think a great way to do that is to set up FaceTime meetings or a Google Hangout, something that allows for a video conference. Because even though we want to get through things as efficiently as possible, anything you can do to set up a way that bonds us with you as like you are a friend of ours is really effective, and so in long-term referrals and just kind of feeling comfortable with the whole process. And I think setting up FaceTime meetings is a great way to do that. And keep in mind that we do stalk you on social media. I'm not saying we're stalking you all the time, but anytime I'm going to do business with someone, I look them up on Facebook or on Twitter. I actually look them up usually on every channel just to check out the person and make sure they're someone I want to do business with. And so you have got to think about your personal brand here. So whatever you're putting out, if you're ranting about how much you hate Obama on Facebook, we're going to see that, and some of us are not going to want to do business with you. So you might either check your privacy settings on there or just be careful about how you're branding yourself on social media. And I really recommend that you do friend your customers on Facebook. It's a great way to build a relationship. I have a great example of there's someone that cuts my hair that she's really inconvenient to get to. She's like a 30-minute drive from me, and I was going to go somewhere else to get my hair cut. But I'm friends with her on Facebook, and I see her come up on my news feed a lot, and I think, oh, I can't go somewhere else. We're friends. And even though I never talk to her except for twice a year when I get my hair cut. And but this is a great example of a way that you can connect with your customers, build that kind of relationship, and it reminds them to refer you to other people. But be careful of what you put on your Facebook and social media. So like I was saying before, a great key marketing strategy is being a resource, just setting yourself up as an expert, a resource for your customers, especially millennials having kind of access we do to information at all times. We're going to be pulling in a lot of stuff that probably is outdated and isn't even true anymore. You need to educate us. And a great way of also kind of building that relationship is I suggest that you find articles that are relevant to us and send it to us on a regular basis. This is a great personalized messaging strategy that allows us to see you as a resource, and it helps us through the process. So if you know that I've got student loan debt, text me an article about how to reduce your student loan debt, and just kind of be in touch with that kind of information. Because like I said, we are information monsters. We just want to consume it all the time, and if you can be set up in that kind of a relationship with us, we will be in relationship with you for life. And then remember, in language and in culture. And this is, across emerging market segments, you really want to consider what is our primary language. In the Hispanic population, even if most of your clients applying for a loan are fluent in English, but you want to provide information to them that is in their native tongue, like that, which is what is most comfortable to them. Because this is one of the biggest decisions that anyone ever makes in their lifetime. So you want to provide information that really connects and allows us to process it in a way that's natural for us. And so with the millennial population, that language is technology. They've got to be communicating with us in a way that puts us at ease and helps us to process the information appropriately and most comfortably. And then partner with community leaders. So if you are trying to reach out to the Hispanic population or an Asian population, connect with people that are already trusted in those communities and really develop relationships with them. Develop them as referral partners. And then sponsor community events and activities. Like I said before, this is a population that very much values social justice. So you want to provide information that is, or be doing things that are appealing to that value, and then publicize it. And that can be a little bit uncomfortable for some people. You don't want to be too braggy, but you really got to publicize it. Put it out there on the social media channels, do a press release if you need to. It's not as effective with millennials, but definitely be sponsoring events that are meaningful. And you got to be a little bit edgy with millennials. Like, definitely stand out for causes that might make your 50-year-old customers a little bit uncomfortable, but you're really reaching the millennial segment. And then be a resource and remain a resource after closing. And this, I think, is absolutely critical. Please show up to your closings. I know it's difficult, and sometimes you have too much to do, but this should be an absolutely huge celebration. It's one of the top 5 moments in my life that I remember and cherish so much. I wanted my family there, and my realtor was there and provided me with a sold sign, took pictures, and posted it on Facebook. We are bonded forever. I mean, he is always someone that I will remember because he was there in that moment. My lender was not there, and I really regret that. I was really sad that he wasn't there, even though we had never even met in person. But it was just a special moment, and that's something that creates a memory that you want people to pass on to others. And then also be a resource after the closing. So stay in touch. Keep in touch on Facebook and keep putting out information that's helpful to them, educational resources, that kind of thing. It's really effective for long-term referrals. And then, again, reach out for help. I'm always happy to answer any questions that pull in those millennials in your life to answer questions as well. And that's it. Thank you guys very much for having me.
Right on, Kristen. Well, you were fantastic. I want you to stay on the call. Dan, while Dan's providing feedback, feel free to bring in some color. So mortgage coaches, I met Kristen at an MBA event. So she was one of the speakers at the MBA event in San Diego, and just had tremendous feedback around how great she was, how good her content was. So that was really a treat to have you here, Kristen. I would like to have you come back more and provide your insights and value to our community. So a couple thoughts for all you mortgage coaches. If you have other questions that you would like Kristen to cover, if she was on a call like this 2-3 times a year, what are other questions that you have for her? What's other content you would like us to provide to help you connect with both millennials and other cultures, other nationalities? What can she do to better serve the mortgage coach community? Reach out to me personally and let me know. And, of course, throw in some questions. We're not going to do those questions right now because we do want to get into Dan Keller's content. Dan, before we transition to you, any questions for Kristen or any color you want to bring around something?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take advantage of this real quick. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, Kristen, so here's the deal. You're a millennial, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. So as a mortgage professional selling to a millennial right now, I know you touched on a few things, but what are some things right away that turn you off when you're working? If we were working, I mean, you touched on a few points, the do's, and we took a ton of notes, but what would turn off a millennial?
Couple things. One is anything salesy. So if you're posting stuff or talking about, hey, we have the lowest rate possible and blah, 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 I just don't trust it. And so that's the biggest thing is I don't trust any of the sales language. And then secondly, the whole big house, big yard with a white picket fence and big family with a dog, that kind of stuff really turns me off, and I think a lot of millennials. The traditional American dream type of stuff.
I love it. It was awesome.
All right, guys. So it was great. I am going to share my screen. Dan, if you can confirm that you can see my screen. Again, folks, feel free to add some takeaways for Dan and I. We're going to focus on the ultimate open house. Kristen, feel free to add your color as we go through this conversation. Dan has done a little more research and a little more prep than normal. While Dan is always delivering value for realtors at open houses, I think some of the, I don't want to call it scripting, but some of the talking points, some of the checklists that we provide, I really feel like we're going to help you guys crush it. If you are helping realtors and delivering value for open houses, we're going to add some value there. So first, let me give a poll. Are you currently adding value to realtors for open houses? If you're on this call, yes or no, are you supporting your realtors, whether that's an open house flyer, whether that's signs, any type of value, yes or no, are you currently delivering value? So by the way, folks, I've only got 46% of you who have voted, and y'all know how I roll. 70% of you vote, so we've got something statistically relevant. So please give us a quick vote. Dan, any guesses what percentage of the audience right now is delivering realtor, open house value to realtors? Any guesses how the vote's gonna come in?
Probably less than 50%. Probably most likely just showing up.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We've got 75% said yes, they're doing something. Cool. So one thing I would like everybody to do, Dan and I are going to do our best to give value to you and tell you what we think you should be doing. But feel free, if you've got a idea, a strategy that's center to how you're delivering value to realtors at open houses, bring it. Tell us what it is, and I'll try to bring that in. So again, the goal here is to get more leads from open houses. So that is the goal. Dan, for anybody who hasn't heard you before, I know you were inspired to update your deck from the call I did with Hunter a few weeks ago. So I'm going to flip through some of your slides that are your kind of your realtor conversation. But if you could give everybody your backstory for a minute or two, and then let's get into best practices.
Yeah, the calls you've been doing this year are absolutely just power-packed, full of knowledge and info. I've known Hunter, I've followed Hunter for the past couple of years, and that call kind of woke me up to really going into meetings with new realtor partners or acquiring new realtor partners with a better plan. And so, yeah, I did. After your call, actually, I spent about 8 hours last weekend. I updated my slide deck, and you're looking at it right now. In 3 meetings last week with new real estate professionals, saying that I aced the meetings would be an understatement. So, I appreciate you, Dave, for bringing that value and prompting me to update how I present my value to real estate agents.
So guys, what you're looking at is when Dan is meeting with an agent and he's talking about, why should they be working with him and having a structured conversation, he's got some visuals. So Dan, are you delivering, when you have these slides, is it an iPad, is it a desktop? Well, it's obviously not a desktop, is it a laptop? How are you delivering your value proposition? What technology are you using?
Yeah, so the slide deck you're looking at is about 13 pages, and it's I print them off in color. And then what I do when I get to a few of the pages, obviously the Mortgage Coach, the app, the Mortgage Coach slides on mobile, and then how I present loan options, I pull out my iPhone and I just show them how crystal clear the video shows up, how the options show up, and then I bring up, I was talking to you about this before the call, I'm really building in marketing and selling to millennials to every single real estate agent conversation that I have. If you're not as a loan officer, if you're not having that conversation with real estate agents, I think you're providing a disservice, because that is, the next few years of sales. You got to get it, and so that's where I'm bringing that into the conversation, and then it's kind of taking the conversation down another road, which is where I want it to go, where I can bring more value than just loan programs and low interest rates.
Right on. So again, you are a leader. You're bringing them leadership. By the way, that first 25 minutes with Kristen, that's leadership that you could bring into a sales meeting at a real estate office. That's leadership, stats, and facts that you can bring into a realtor that focuses on first-time home buyers. So again, hopefully you guys pulled that out of there, and then I know you will. So guys, let's get into open house sales and marketing, because when I've done my research, which, it's everything from I've interviewed top loan officers, I've interviewed Steve Harney, I've interviewed Michael Mayer, I've interviewed some of the top realtor, the #1 realtor in America, and it always fits into sales and marketing. There's the marketing. There's how do we get people to come to the open houses, and so we've created a few checklists. We've got a few pictures that show everything from traditional, I don't want to call them old school, but traditional ways of getting people into open houses. And then we talk about new ways, So Dan, let's start it with, when you think of the open houses that you're supporting, what percentage of the foot traffic and people that are coming through those are coming through traditional versus new ways?
I think it's important that, and I don't want to wing this, I think we talked about this last week, Dave. I think it's, from my standpoint, it's important to let you guys know that we ask. So when I'm working an open house with a real estate agent, we're not just instantly selling and bombarding the client, potential home buyer, as they walk in. We're initiating conversations, and so we're actually, one of the first pieces of dialogue that we use is, hey, how did you hear about our open house today? Knowing that we put out probably 30 or 40 signs, knowing that we've got Craigslist ads out there, knowing that we've got, the real estate professional has done his or her job updating the online portals and updating the MLS feeds, but that's kind of an icebreaker. And so I was telling you last week, Dave, when we were prepping for this event, it's crazy, whereas we're thinking they're going to say, oh, we saw your signs off of 19th Avenue. No, they're saying, oh, we saw it on Zillow, or oh, we were browsing through Trulia and we saw it, and so it just kind of prompted us to swing by today.
So what percent are coming from, online or mobile resources versus local signs and local neighbors? What do you think the percentage is?
Yeah, I would say it's greater than 50%.
Yeah, so I would say when I've interviewed agents and in preparation for this, I think in almost every case it's over 50%, and I've heard in some markets it's up to 70%. So I guess I just, I think that's almost becoming common knowledge. Mm-hmm. But I think in terms of loan officers, how you're bringing leadership to realtors, there's a level of better that we can do. And so I am, with Dan and a few other realtors, we're putting together a more comprehensive checklist. So like if you look at the slides I'm going through right now, it's, you got to select a property. Now, one thing that I don't think enough loan officers do is, what is your lifestyle headline? So what about that property from a lifestyle perspective is the headline? And what is the mortgage headline? And now you may not have the mortgage headline in the actual online content, but it's going to be part of how you convert once someone walks in the door. What is the mortgage value proposition? And I think for the sake of this call, we're going to really dedicate the rest of this call around how to convert at the point of sale when someone walks into that open house. But let's just make sure you guys are being intentional around getting people to come into the open house on social, using all of the online resources. So here's the checklist, and this checklist is everything from prepping the home, lighting, music, to making sure that you've got visuals, using an iPad. If an Apple TV is a strategy, using that. And then we're really going to focus this call around what are the questions you should ask to really drive a mortgage coach open house experience. So Dan, why don't you just provide some color? I've got some visuals that we're going to go through, but provide the leadership you're giving to realtors and that realtors are giving to homeowners, so that they're turning people that walk into open houses, they're getting leads, both leads for themselves and leads for you.
Yeah, no, I'm going to take a step back real quick. So it was about 3 or 4 years ago that I was listening to a YouTube video that Tom Ferry produced on, how to master an open house. And it kind of prompted me. I was doing open houses at the time and really found that as a younger loan officer, it was the easiest way, A, to build rapport with the real estate professional, but B, if I needed a loan or two to close next month to pay my mortgage, I was going to go out and I was going to meet real estate agents and I was going to add value at an open house. And so I made it a consistent part of my business plan to work weekends, to work open houses. Well, after going through this for a few months and just figuring out that there was a better way and studying what home buyers wanted, what real estate agents wanted, and certainly what I wanted, I didn't want to go work 4 hours on a weekend and have it be a waste of time. And so as I continued to fine-tune what I was doing, that's when I went out and had multiple signs built and made. That's obviously, in the meantime, I came across and connected with you at Mortgage Coach and really identified, making an open house website with your total cost MC Edge and total cost analysis or loan comparison worksheets. And, over the years, I've kind of fine-tuned a strategy. And part of doing that is really understanding the anatomy of working an open house. Most home buyers are going to walk into an open house and they're going to be instantly turned off by a real estate agent or a lender. You're going to just attack and they feel like they're attacked. And you can just tell. When they walk in, they're almost putting up their hands going, Jesus, leave me alone, I want to see this house. And so over the past couple of years specifically, we've really fine-tuned our dialogue, and a lot of this has to do with the type of real estate professionals that I actually work open houses with in today's market. But what we're doing is it's more of, hey, one of the first questions, like we just talked about, is, hey, how did you hear about our open house today? We always like to report back to our sellers on, how people are coming in and how people are finding the open house. It has a lot to do with our marketing to report back to them. And so, a lot of times they're going to say Zillow or Trulia or Redfin. Other times they're going to say, Craigslist or we saw your signs. And so that's one of the first things. One of the very next questions that we ask is, do you live in this community and do you have a house that you will need to sell? And so that answer is going to take us down one of two roads. Either no, so they're a first-time home buyer. At that point in time, we go into professor education mode. If they say yes, that's when the real estate professional goes down their road on talking to them about inventory, about the market conditions, about home equity, etc. So I think having a system for working an open house so that you're effective with your time is key. But then, like you just hit on marketing and selling, you could work open houses, and if you're turning people off, they're not going to give you their information. They're not going to give you information that allows you to send them, your home buyer ebook or send them information on what their home is worth. And so I hope I answered your question there, but it's a lot of it nowadays is centered around dialogue.
Well, I think, to me the takeaway here is it's the question after the question that matters most. It's the conversation. And then to Kristen's point, doing that in a way that you sincerely are curious and interested. It is the thing I think is so funny. What millennials want and love, it's the same thing everybody wants and loves. People that are authentic, people that are truly care, and people that ask questions and listen. So, through all of my research and prep for this call, I find that, the best way to get leads is to just really ask these 4 questions. How did you hear about it? If they heard about it through Redfin, are you working with a Redfin agent with sincere curiosity? Or are you working with a realtor? But what I find, by the way, when I went out and shopped open houses this weekend myself, I went to about 3 or 4, and the agents didn't ask these questions. They didn't ask for the business. They really were just there to make sure that people who walked through the house didn't take anything. And if someone came up and had an interest, they were there to help them. Or they were really focused on selling that house to a point that I thought was not productive. So again, I really think, we could spend a lot of time on this. I mean, when I was scheduling this call, I realized that scheduling a whole hour to talk about open houses wouldn't have been doing anybody a favor, because it's so darn simple, guys. It's, first of all, I don't want to take away from signs. Yes, you need to put up signs, but make sure you have a great online presence, which means, Trillia, Zillow, Redfin, and your social. And then make sure that the realtor who's holding the open house is ready to have conversations with people that converts into leads. It's really that simple. So, Kristen, anything you want to add to this conversation at this point?
Not much, other than I definitely agree with the conversation, the questions, as long as you're keeping them super authentic. I know when I was looking for my house, I was mostly just annoyed by the realtors, and so I was like, you're in my way, and I'm not learning anything from you. So if you have something that you can provide value in that moment and connect on a relational level, then that is, I think, a huge key. So.
Yeah, so I mean, the big takeaway there is she's mostly annoyed because they weren't there to really serve her and educate her. But if they would have been there to actually provide you with information and education, you probably wouldn't have been annoyed, right?
No, completely. I mean, we'll jump on board with you if you do bring that value or you connect on a relational level, because we love relationships. Just like everyone, like you said. I mean, we want to connect, and we like connecting with strangers. I mean, so we're all about that. It's just a matter of not being annoying, just being, connecting on a real level, an authentic level.
Right on. So again, one of my goals with everybody on this call, if you are serving realtors and you're helping them with open houses, you need to start providing them with, a mortgage coach link, and you need to also provide them with some training around how to use the app and how to have the rent versus own a conversation. Again, they don't need to get to it in detail. It's a 30-second to a 45, maybe a 2-minute conversation, but they should be offering every single first-time home buyer a rent versus own analysis, and most of them will appreciate that. If you could show them and say, hey, how would you like me to provide one of these so you know exactly what the value of homeownership is to you? Knowing, again, yes, millennials love it, but so does everybody. Anybody who's buying a home for the first time would appreciate that. And if someone's moving up into a new home, a move-up analysis, showing them, really breaking it down, showing them the cost and the benefits of moving up. So again, my hope is that you guys will start driving more of these conversations. And then last but not least, start really driving the total cost conversation. Dan, anything you want to share on scripting that you're teaching your realtors when you think of the realtors that do the best job of, getting new leads out of the open house?
Yeah, I think it's really big when you're doing an open house, again, not to wing it, to have an idea, okay, at the end of the day, if you work an open house and 20 people come through, you want 20 email addresses or 20 phone numbers. And so what I want is, I want an email address that's valid, that's legit. So what I do is I wrote a first-time homebuyer ebook. It's about 32 pages. I wrote it about 2.5 years ago. So I have a color copy of that on the counter. I don't give it out, but I show them if the dialogue goes down the road of them being a first-time buyer. So you know what, I have something right here that will add so much value to your experience. Whether you use me or not, I want to get you a copy of this. Would you at least give me your email so that I can send you this? Now, when I send that to them, I'm doing it through iJot or through BombBomb, and I'm sending them a video email, and I'm sending them a personalized message, kind of like what Kristen said. Hey, John and Cindy, it was really nice meeting you today. As promised, I wanted to send you a copy of my ebook. Please read through this and let me know if you have any questions. I'm looking forward to being a resource for you as you consider your options around homeownership. It's that simple. And so at the end of the day, again, if you have a plan and you don't wing it, you're going to have success at this. But just to say, hey, which most real estate agents do, hey, can I get your name and your number so I can send you a card or follow up with you? Why? I wouldn't want to give somebody my name or, my email and my phone number if there wasn't something of value that I'm going to receive from it. And so I think having that plan and using some of that dialogue like that is going to increase your chances of getting a new client out of working an open house. And that's the whole idea. We don't get paid to sell. We get paid to close.
Yeah. And I just want everybody to think, when you think of that last question, for so many agents, they really do, can I have your name and phone number so that I can follow up with you? And again, maybe so I can forward you more properties, which, by the way, is what every realtor does. And by the way, some people will say yes, but many will say no. At the end of the day, give them what they want to receive. By the way, in order to do that, you need to ask them questions with the heart of curiosity, really listen, and then tailor something educational that's going to meet the needs of that customer. Don't go into it just focused on what you want to give, but what that customer wants to see. So to me, this is a quote that Coach Bill Hart, I pulled it off of Facebook, I think it was a couple weeks ago. And I really believe this, that when you look at the most successful loan officers of tomorrow, and you look at what's happening in this emerging market, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. The world is changing. Obviously, everybody on this call, you're a mortgage coach. You do believe in leveraging technology to deliver a better experience to folks. But here's the challenge. Everybody's not doing it. If I took a poll right now, what percentage of you are providing your realtors with a link so they can have a mobile experience at an open house? I don't even think it would be 50% of you guys. So hopefully, we're between Kristen setting the table, making the case, Dan Keller really breaking down what he's doing and how he's doing it. We're going to get everybody on this call to not just deliver price, but deliver advice. Make sure you're doing it with every client, and make sure you're doing it at every open house. So, guys, we're kind of within the last couple minutes. I do want to. I did show some slides. I've had a lot of people ask questions like, "Can you send me these things?" I'm going to have some of these scripts and some of these lists put in our script kit. In our script kit, I'll put a link to that script kit in the comments from today's Facebook post. So I will have that added. But also, I just want to remind you guys, we record this call, so you could go and go to the point that you want to do a screen grab, and you can get this stuff. So these calls are recorded. You can get it there. So just vetting out what's most important to do an open house, talk to as many people as possible, connect authentically, add value, ask to follow up, and then actually follow up in a valuable way. Dan Keller, any last thoughts you want to add as we wrap up today's call?
Here's my big takeaway. I just tweeted this when Kristen was presenting. That communication, we need to communicate, and that communication needs to lead to an experience. And I think you're knocking it out of the park with Mortgage Coach. That's why I'm on the call today, and I support you so much, Dave, is you're helping me do that on a daily basis. And then what Kristen said, loyalty and relationship building is the new marketing. I'm living that. I'm doing that. I believe it 100%, and she knocked it out of the park today with her presentation. So thank you, Kristen.
Right on, guys. So last thoughts, last reminders. What are your lifestyle headlines to sell homes and get leads? What are your mortgage headlines to sell homes and get leads? You need to be prepared, and you need to help your realtors get prepared. So don't miss next Tuesday's call with Anthony. This, I think, will be the third time I had this, one of the best sales trainers. He's featured in Success Magazine regularly. He speaks around the country, teaching people how to sell better. So he's going to just really global industry leader, speaker, author, going to help us just improve our sales techniques. I want to give a big thank you to Kristen and Dan for your value today. I am launching a poll. Just let us know what you thought of today's call. Did we deliver value? Did we surpass your expectations? And if you're a guest and a non-Mortgage Coach member and you want to get a demo and learn more about Mortgage Coach, let us know that. So, Kristen, any last words from you, because this was your first time on a Mortgage Coach call? Anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
I just want to also say that the comment about giving value after, collecting the email and giving value, I think is a really great example. I'm definitely going to be using that in the future, so thanks, Dan, for that example. I think that any way you can even follow up after that with more valuable information, we love it. So that's a great way to stay in touch and build that relationship. Thanks so much for having me on the call. I really enjoyed it.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to having you again. I really liked your post in the Crispin Report a couple weeks ago. and I like the debate you're having with the industry around, you know, millennials speak digital, deliver in their native language. I think, like I said, it's not just good for the millennial population. I think everybody wants to be communicated in a new way. So my challenge to the mortgage coach community, start delivering more wow experiences at open houses. And thanks for all the value. Keep the questions coming, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.